Well, hey fans, welcome back to another movie review, and today we're talking about Captain America: Brave New World. So Captain America: Brave New World is a superhero political conspiracy thriller directed by Julius Onah, starring Anthony Mackie, Harrison Ford, Danny Ramirez, Giancarlo Esposito, Shira Haas, Tim Blake Nelson, Carl Lumbly, and many other names. And it follows Sam Wilson, who is now Captain America. It is about 3 years after the events of the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and he's, doing his job, going on these missions for the government to save the day any way he can. Occasionally he allows Danny Ramirez to suit up as the Falcon and help him on these missions, and I like their camaraderie. It is really great. It's not the same type of friendship that you had with Sam and Steve Rogers, whereas they're both kind of adults. Danny Ramirez is a little bit younger, so he is a little bit more annoying. He kind of looks up to Sam in more of a superhero mythical figure type way, as opposed to where Sam respected Steve Rogers as a military person. So the movie really does kind of function as a follow-up to The Incredible Hulk from way back then. It ties up a lot of loose ends from that movie, and it does so in a way that makes perfect sense. With the way the story goes, it makes sense that this is a Captain America story and not a Hulk story. Like the type of espionage that is going on, the political conspiracy thriller, it doesn't really fit for something that Bruce Banner would be a part of. And I like that they did that, and especially when you bring in the villain of the Leader, who is normally a Hulk villain in the comics. Considering this is a part of the greater MCU, he works in the aspect of the stuff he's operating behind the shadows, controlling President Ross to a certain degree, controlling everything that's going on with his ability. I like how they basically took something that isn't a Captain America story and made it a Captain America story. And speaking of Captain America, Sam Wilson, Anthony Mackie, is great in the role. He really does prove why he should be the new leader of the Avengers. This is probably the best acting he has done in the MCU, because this is the first time he's really been at front and center. He had a big role in the Winter Soldier, and since then he's kind of been, he's been on the team, but he's been relegated to like third or fourth seat in those movies that he was a part of. But wow, this guy, he does a great job. I like how they differentiate his combat from Steve Rogers, where you can clearly tell that this guy is not a super soldier. He fights more like a Black Widow. His punches are a little bit slower, a little more tactical, where Steve Rogers runs up and just front kicks you off a boat and there's nothing you can do about it. So I like how they differentiated that. He clearly gets tired more easily than Steve Rogers, and he's not as strong. There's just so much more to differentiate him, and that is really what makes him such a great Captain America. And they mention in the movie, whereas he is an Avenger that people not only look up to, but can aspire to be. You cannot be Steve Rogers. Two things: you cannot be Steve Rogers unless you have the super soldier serum. And at the same time, even if you do get the super soldier serum, you're not necessarily going to turn out to be the exact same person like him. Many other men have tried. Anthony Mackie's Sam Wilson, when he's Captain America, he is a normal human being. Yes, he's militarily trained and all of that, but anybody can be in the position that he's in. And I love that aspect about him. Harrison Ford taking over for William Hurt as President Ross. I enjoyed it. I think Harrison Ford did a great job. We actually do get a scene of him with the mustache. It's in like a flashback, and it really does look nice. They do play the character slightly different. This is a more elder statesman of Thunderbolt Ross, who is looking back on his life and realizing all the mistakes that he has made and how he needs to kind of atone for that, and he wants to leave a legacy of good as opposed to a legacy of anger, so to speak. He wants to make up with his daughter any way he can, and he thinks that becoming president and doing good for the United States is his way forward. So I really enjoyed that aspect. There is a funny note about the character. There's like a younger picture of him in his office with his wife and Betty Ross, who's a child, and it looks like they fused Harrison Ford's face with William Hurt's face to make the younger version. And I just thought that was pretty interesting. Shira Haas in this movie as Ruth Bat Seraph. As a part of like the reshoots, I think originally her character was going to be Sabra, just like in the comics, but in this movie they made her a Black Widow. She's probably the weakest part of the story for me. She does have some scenes where I'm like, wow, that was pretty good. Why can't she be like that the entire movie? But I do think a lot of her scenes were probably cut out or reworked, and that she was hired to be this superhero type character, and they just make her to a Black Widow, and she doesn't seem believable to me as a Black Widow, even though she's around the same height as Scarlett Johansson and Florence Pugh. They're very close in height, those three girls, but she just doesn't give off the same aura as those two actresses. You can actually see in a scene right before the battle above the Indian Ocean, she has on whatever her superhero suit was going to be in the original cut of the movie. She's wearing it under her civilian clothes in that scene. You can tell they just totally cut out whatever she's going to be, and they just left that scene in there. So that was interesting to me. And speaking of that Battle of the Indian Ocean, that is one of the best action sequences in the MCU. The flight choreography in that rivals something I've seen in Top Gun. I like the way they shot that. It looked better. Those scenes look better than the fight scenes in the movie. And I think part of that is because Julius Onah is not a real seasoned director. He doesn't really know how to edit fight scenes that well. Like, those vary from how you see them. They look great in terms of, like, I can tell that Sam Wilson is fighting different than Captain America, but they're not the best edited, so to speak. But those aerial maneuvers are great. The fight scene with the Red Hulk at the end of the movie is also great. But like, those hand-to-hand combat scenes with normal people, those fight scenes could have been improved on. Really enjoyed the story, really enjoyed the thriller. There are a few surprises that I will not spoil that I was like, oh, well, that was nice to see. They do kind of connect it to the multiverse saga in a very interesting way. I'm not going to spoil that either. Tim Blake Nelson as the leader. I'm glad that he was back. Glad that he reprised that role after so many years. There is an interesting thing involving, and I don't want to spoil too much, but like the Raft. I don't understand the Raft being in this movie when in She-Hulk they established they have this brand new prison on the mainland. So I think that's another part of the fact that for a time at Marvel there was a lot of communication between projects. And speaking of communication between projects and things going down at Marvel, this movie was supposed to be a disaster. It was supposed to be a disaster. All the reshoots apparently it had, I thought it turned out fine. There are some scenes where you can definitely be like, yeah, this was a reshoot. Yeah, this is on the volume. Yeah, they changed some ADR here. But overall, it's great. One of the things that they added in the reshoot was Giancarlo Esposito as Sidewinder. Very underutilized. Don't really think they needed to hire him specifically for this role. They could have hired a younger actor. I think it would have worked out better. They should have saved Giancarlo Esposito for something else, because I feel like he's kind of wasted in this movie. He's in a few scenes. He's fine, but it's like he feels old. He feels too old to be in the role that he's in. So overall, in terms of a score, I'm going to give Captain America Brave New World a decent 7.5 out of 10. It really does give off vibes that are really close to Captain America the Winter Soldier. It aspires to be that. It doesn't quite reach the greatness of that movie, which is the best MCU movie they've ever made. But they're on the right track, and I would love to see another Sam Wilson Captain America movie. Maybe give the directing chair back over to the Russo brothers. I think they could do a great job. And maybe adapt Captain America Red, White, and Black. Whatever story they work out for him, I can't wait to see. And I can't wait to see him in the new Avengers movies. He's going to be the leader of the team. And this movie gets me excited for the MCU again. I'd like to thank you guys again for joining me for this movie review. Remember, you can find the full review on YouTube and the website, flipfrogllc.com/flicksfrog. Remember, you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Reddit. And please, pretty please, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, I'll be seeing you.